Welcome, everyone. We gather today to revisit a case that has become a byword for unsolved mysteries, a haunting touchstone in the annals of true criming, the case of JonBenét Ramsey. Prepare yourselves, for this is a journey into a labyrinth of unanswered questions, a story that continues to provoke debate and stir emotions decades later. Are you ready to confront a case that defies easy answers? Picture this, a festive season, a charming family home in Boulder, Colorado, and a little girl, JonBenét, a 6-year-old beauty queen with a captivating smile. Now hold that image and contrast it with the chilling discovery the day after Christmassy. JonBenét found lifeless in the basement of her own home. How did this idyllic scene descend into such unfathomable tragedy? What forces were at play in this seemingly perfect suburban world? This case is a vortex of perplexing evidence, a web of conflicting narratives, and a media circus that amplified every twist and turn. We'll navigate through the intricacies of the ransom note, the highly scrutinized investigation, and the cloud of suspicion that enveloped the Ramsey family. Was an intruder responsible for this heinous act? Or did the truth reside within the family itself, hidden behind a veil of secrets? How did the unprecedented media attention shape public perception and potentially hinder the pursuit of justice? Buckle up, because this case is a roller coaster of speculation and intrigue. Are you prepared to join me as we dissect the enduring enigma of JonBenét Ramsey? Let's embark on this journey together and try to shed some light on this enduring mystery. Part 2, The Unfolding Tragedy, a timeline of terror. The death of JonBenét Ramsey on December 26, 1996, was not just a tragedy. It was the beginning of a perplexing enigma that continues to confound investigators and public alike. To understand the complexities of this case, we must meticulously retrace the steps, hour by hour, piecing together the fragmented timeline of that fateful Christmas night and the days that followed. This detailed chronology is crucial to understanding the investigation and the controversies that surround it. December 25, 1996, Jew. The last day of innocence. The day began like any other Christmas for the Ramsey family. John Ramsey, a successful businessman, his wife Patsy, a former beauty queen, and their 2 children, Burke, 9, and JonBenét, 6, were a picture of American affluence and happiness. They lived in a large, Tudor-style home in the upscale community of Boulder, Colorado, a town known for its picturesque setting and affluent residents. JonBenét, a vibrant and outgoing child, was already a seasoned competitor in the world of child beauty pageants. With her blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes, and captivating smile, she had won numerous titles, including Little Miss Colorado. Patsy, herself a former Miss West Virginia, was deeply involved in her daughter's pageant career, meticulously crafting her image and accompanying her to competitions. It seemed she found great joy in her daughter's pageant world. On Christmas morning, the Ramsey family awoke to a scene of festive cheer. Presents were exchanged, a traditional Christmas breakfast was shared, and the children played with their new toys. By all accounts, it was a joyful and uneventful morning. There was no indication of any problems or anything out of the ordinary. In the afternoon, the Ramseys attended a Christmas party at the home of their friends, Fleet and Priscilla White. JonBenét and Burke were excited to see their friends and play. Witnesses later described the Ramsey family as appearing happy and relaxed at the party. There was nothing unusual in their behavior, nothing to suggest the horror that was to come later that night. The Ramseys left the Whites' party at around 100 p.m. and returned to their home at 755 15th Street. According to John and Patsy Ramsey, they put JonBenét to bed shortly after arriving home. She was reportedly wearing a long-sleeved white top and long underwear, the same outfit she had worn to the party. Burke was already in bed. John and Patsy then spent some time preparing for a trip to Michigan, scheduled for the following morning. They were planning to visit family for the New Year's holiday. They packed their bags, made final arrangements, and went to bed themselves at approximately 10,000 p.m. This was the last time they said that they saw their daughter alive. December 26, 1996, the discovery and the chaos, the events of December 26, 1996, are shrouded in controversy and conflicting accounts. What is known for certain is that at approximately 5:04 a.m., Patsy Ramsey found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the back staircase of their home. This is the moment that everything changed for the Ramsey family. The note, written on a pad of paper that belonged to the Ramseys, demanded $118,000 for the safe return of JonBenét, an amount strangely close to the bonus John Ramsey had recently received at work. The note was unusually long and rambling, containing odd phrases and specific instructions that seemed both sophisticated and amateurish at the same time. It was unlike anything seen before in a kidnapping case. The note warned the Ramseys not to contact the police or the FBI and claimed that JonBenét was being held by a foreign faction. It also stated that they would be contacted by phone between 800 and 10,000 a.m. the next morning with instructions for delivering the ransom. The note's authenticity and authorship have been the subject of intense debate ever since. Patsy, understandably hysterical after reading the note, immediately ran upstairs to JonBenét's room, only to find her bed empty. She then woke John, and together they frantically searched the house for their daughter, but she was nowhere to be found. Their immediate assumption was that she had been kidnapped, as the note suggested. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy called 911, reporting her daughter missing and informing the dispatcher about the ransom note. The call was frantic and emotional, with Patsy sobbing and pleading for help. This 911 call has been scrutinized countless times by audio experts, with some claiming to detect inconsistencies or signs of deception, while others maintain it reflects genuine distress. The first police officers arrived at the Ramsey home within minutes, at approximately 5:55 a.m. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but found no signs of forced entry or a struggle. This is where the official investigation began. The officers, believing they were dealing with a kidnapping, focused their initial efforts on securing the house and preparing for the expected ransom call. They advised John and Patsy not to leave the house and to wait for further instructions from the alleged kidnappers. This is standard procedure in such cases. As news of JonBenét's disappearance spread, friends and neighbors began to arrive at the Ramsey home to offer their support. This influx of people, while well-intentioned, would later be criticized for potentially contaminating the crime scene, a critical error in the early stages of the investigation. The basement discovery, hours passed, and the promised phone call from the kidnappers never came. The tension and anxiety inside the Ramsey home grew with each passing minute. At approximately 2:00 p.m., Detective Linda Arndt, who was the lead investigator on the case at that point, made an unusual request. She asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house again, in case they had missed anything earlier. It was an odd request, given that the house had already been searched multiple times by police officers. John Ramsey and Fleet White began their search in the basement, a part of the house that had reportedly not been thoroughly examined earlier. In a small, windowless room known as the wine cellar, they made a horrifying discovery: JonBenét's lifeless body. This is where the case took a dark turn. JonBenét was lying on her back, covered with a white blanket. A nylon cord was tied around her neck, and her wrists were bound together with another cord. Duct tape covered her mouth. A garrote, fashioned from a piece of cord and a broken paintbrush handle, was found near her body. It was a horrific scene, one that would forever be etched in the minds of those who witnessed it, and one that would spark endless speculation and debate. John Ramsey immediately picked up his daughter's body and carried her upstairs, a decision that would later be heavily scrutinized by investigators. This action, while understandable from a father's perspective, undoubtedly compromised the crime scene and potentially destroyed valuable forensic evidence. It was a critical mistake that would have significant ramifications for the investigation. The investigation begins. Early missteps and controversies. The discovery of JonBenét's body transformed the case from a missing person investigation to a homicide investigation. The Boulder Police Department, however, was ill-equipped to handle a case of this magnitude and complexity. They were a small-town police force, with limited experience in investigating major crimes, and they were quickly overwhelmed by the intense media scrutiny and the complex forensic evidence. The initial investigation was plagued by a series of errors and missteps that would have lasting consequences for the case. These including failure to secure the crime scene. The Ramsey home was not properly secured after the discovery of JonBenét's body. Friends, neighbors, and even police officers were allowed to wander freely throughout the house, potentially contaminating the crime scene and destroying valuable evidence. This was a major oversight that compromised the integrity of the investigation from the very beginning, compromising the body. John Ramsey's decision to move JonBenét's body from the basement to the living room compromised the integrity of the crime scene and potentially destroyed crucial forensic evidence. This made it difficult to determine the exact circumstances of her death and hindered the ability to collect accurate forensic data. Delayed forensic examination. The coroner did not arrive at the scene until several hours after the body was discovered, further delaying the collection of forensic evidence. This delay allowed for the degradation of crucial evidence and made it more difficult to determine the time and cause of death. Inadequate interviews is zero. The initial interviews with John and Patsy Ramsey were brief and superficial, failing to adequately explore their potential involvement in the crime. They were not initially treated as suspects, which many believe was a critical error. Lack of coordination. There was a lack of coordination and communication between the Boulder Police Department and the District Attorney's Office, leading to a fragmented and ineffective investigation. This created tension and mistrust between the two agencies, hindering their ability to work together effectively. These early missteps created a chaotic and confusing investigative environment, setting the stage for a protracted and ultimately inconclusive investigation. The case was compromised from the very beginning, making it increasingly difficult to unravel the truth. The ransom noting, a source of endless debate. The 2.5-page ransom note, found by Patsy Ramsey, has been a source of endless debate and speculation since the very beginning of the investigation. Its unusual length, its peculiar wording, and its demand for an amount that so closely matched John Ramsey's bonus have all contributed to its enigmatic status. This note has been analyzed by countless experts, but no consensus has ever been reached. Linguistic experts have analyzed the note, with some concluding that it was likely written by Patsy Ramsey, based on similarities in handwriting and language use. Others, however, have disputed this conclusion, arguing that the evidence is inconclusive and that the note could have been written by an outsider. The note also contained numerous misspellings and grammatical errors, which some experts believe were intentionally added to disguise the author's true writing style. These anomalies continue to fuel debate. The content of the note has also been heavily scrutinized. The use of the term foreign faction, the specific instructions for delivering the ransom, and the overall tone of the note have all been interpreted in various ways, with some suggesting that it was written by someone familiar with the Ramsey family and their finances, while others believe it was a clumsy attempt to mislead investigators. It is possible that the author was trying to mimic a foreign accent or create a false impression of a sophisticated group of kidnappers. The ransom note remains one of the most perplexing pieces of evidence in the JonBenét Ramsey case. A riddle wrapped in an enigma, and a constant source of fascination and frustration for investigators and armchair detectives alike. It is one of the most debated and analyzed pieces of evidence in the history of true crime. Yet, it has yielded no definitive answers. The suspects, a cloud of suspicion from the outset. The investigation into JonBenét's death was marked by a cloud of suspicion that hung over the Ramsey family. The unusual circumstances surrounding the discovery of the body, the perplexing ransom note, and the perceived lack of cooperation from John and Patsy Ramsey all contributed to this atmosphere of suspicion. The media's portrayal of the family further fueled public speculation. John and Patsy Ramsey vehemently denied any involvement in their daughter's death, and they hired a team of lawyers and public relations experts to defend their image and manage the intense media scrutiny. They maintained their innocence throughout the investigation and beyond. But public opinion remained divided. Many believed they were hiding something, that their behavior was not consistent with that of grieving parents. The Boulder Police Department, under the leadership of Detective Linda Arndt, initially focused their investigation on the Ramsey family, pursuing the theory that either John or Patsy, or both, were involved in JonBenét's death and had staged the crime scene to look like a kidnapping gone wrong. This theory was based on several factors, including the lack of signs of forced entry, the unusual ransom note, and the perceived inconsistencies in the Ramseys' statements to police. However, the investigation was hampered by a lack of direct evidence linking the Ramseys to the crime. There were no fingerprints, no DNA evidence, and no eyewitness accounts that could definitively place either John or Patsy at the scene of the crime. This made it very difficult to build a case against them, despite the suspicions, alternative theories, and other suspects. As the investigation continued, alternative theories and other potential suspects emerged, further complicating the case. These including the intruder theory. This theory, favored by the Ramsey family and their supporters, posited that an unknown intruder had entered the Ramsey home on the night of December 25, 1996, kidnapped JonBenét, sexually assaulted her, and ultimately killed her. However, the lack of signs of forced entry and the absence of any definitive evidence of an intruder made this theory difficult to substantiate. Proponents of this theory point to unidentified DNA found at the scene, but critics argue that this DNA could have resulted from contamination. Bill McReynolds Scully, a local man who had played Santa Claus at the Ramsey home in the past, and who had a history of mental health issues. McReynolds was briefly considered a suspect, but was eventually cleared by investigators. While some of his writings and behavior raised concerns, no concrete evidence linked him to the crime. Michael Helgoth, a local electrician with a history of minor criminal offenses. Helgoth became a person of interest after his apparent suicide in 1997. A pair of boots found near his body appeared to match a print found in the Ramsey basement. However, no direct evidence linking him to the crime was ever found, and his connection to the case remains speculative. Gary Olivog, a convicted sex offender who lived near Boulder at the time of the murder, Oliva was investigated but never charged. He was known to have an obsession with JonBenét and had made incriminating statements to a friend. However, DNA evidence ruled him out as the source of the unknown male DNA found on JonBenét's body. Despite numerous investigations into these and other potential suspects, no one other than the Ramseys has ever been officially named as a suspect in the case. The investigation eventually stalled, leaving the case unsolved and fueling countless theories and speculations. The Media Frenzy, a case study in tabloid journalism, the JonBenét Ramsey case became an instant media sensation, dominating headlines and captivating the public's attention for months, even years after her death. The case had all the elements of a tabloid sensation: a beautiful child, a wealthy family, a mysterious crime, and a seemingly endless stream of leaks, rumors, and speculation. It was a perfect storm for the media, and they exploited it to the fullest. The media coverage of the case was often criticized for its sensationalism, its focus on lurid details, and its tendency to rely on unnamed sources and unverified information. The constant media scrutiny put immense pressure on the investigation and may have even hindered the pursuit of justice. It also created a climate of fear and suspicion in Boulder as residents grappled with the horror of the crime. The Ramsey family, in particular, became the target of intense media scrutiny, with every aspect of their lives dissected and analyzed in the public eye. They were often portrayed as guilty until proven innocent. And the constant media attention undoubtedly took a toll on their emotional well-being and their ability to grieve their daughter's death. It was a very difficult time for them, as they faced not only the loss of their child, but also the relentless judgment of the public. The JonBenét Ramsey case serves as a cautionary tale about the power of the media to shape public perception and influence the course of a criminal investigation. It highlights the dangers of trial by media and the need for responsible and ethical reporting, especially in cases involving such sensitive and tragic circumstances. The media frenzy surrounding the case undoubtedly complicated the investigation and made it even more difficult to find the truth. The grand jury investigation, 1998-1999. In 1998, in an attempt to break the deadlock in the investigation, the Boulder District Attorney, Alex Hunter, convened a grand jury to review the evidence in the JonBenét Ramsey case. The grand jury, composed of a panel of citizens, was tasked with determining whether there was sufficient evidence to indict anyone for the crime. It was a last-ditch effort to find justice for JonBenét. The grand jury proceedings were conducted in secret, and over the course of 13 months, they heard testimony from dozens of witnesses, including investigators, forensic experts, and members of the Ramsey family. The grand jury had the power to subpoena witnesses and compel them to testify under oath, a power that the police did not have. This allowed them to gather information that had not been previously available. In October 1999, after a year of deliberations, the grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges of child abuse resulting in death. However, in a controversial move, District Attorney Alex Hunter declined to prosecute the case, citing a lack of sufficient evidence to secure a conviction. He stated that he did not believe there was enough evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. The decision not to prosecute was met with outrage and disbelief by many, including some members of the grand jury, who felt that there was enough evidence to bring the case to trial. The grand jury's indictment remained sealed for many years, further fueling speculation and conspiracy theories about the case. The indictment was finally released to the public in 2013, revealing the specific charges against the Ramseys, but providing little new insight into the evidence that the grand jury had considered. The DNA evidence, a glimmer of hope. In 2003, new DNA testing technology allowed for the analysis of previously inconclusive DNA samples found on JonBenét's clothing. The results revealed the presence of DNA from an unknown male, a finding that seemed to support the intruder theory and cast doubt on the theory that the Ramseys were involved. This was a major development in the case and seemed to offer a new avenue for investigation. In 2008, based on this new DNA evidence, the Boulder District Attorney, Mary Lacey, officially exonerated the Ramsey family, stating that the DNA evidence pointed to an unknown male, and there was no evidence to support the theory that John, Patsy, or Burke Ramsey were involved in JonBenét's death. This was a significant moment for the Ramsey family, who had long maintained their innocence. However, the DNA evidence has not been without its critics. some experts have questioned the significance of the DNA findings, arguing that the samples could have been the result of contamination or accidental transfer. Others have pointed out that the presence of unknown DNA does not necessarily prove the existence of an intruder or rule out the involvement of the Ramsey family. The DNA, while significant, has not definitively solved the case. The case remains unsolved, a legacy of questions more than 2 decades after the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. The case remains officially unsolved. Despite numerous investigations, countless theories, and endless speculation, no one has ever been brought to justice for her death. The case has become a symbol of the limitations of the criminal justice system and the enduring power of unsolved mysteries. It is a case that continues to haunt and fascinate. The JonBenét Ramsey case continues to fascinate and perplex, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring search for answers in the face of tragedy. It is a case that has generated more questions than answers, a labyrinth of clues and red herrings that has led investigators and armchair detectives down countless dead ends. It is a case that defies easy explanation. Conclusion: the unfolding tragedy of JonBenét Ramsey's death is a story of innocence lost, a family shattered, and a community gripped by fear and suspicion. It is a case study in the challenges of investigating complex crimes, the pitfalls of media sensationalism, and the enduring power of unsolved mysteries. The events of December 25th and 26th, 1996, set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the lives of those involved and leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. The investigation into JonBenét's murder was flawed from the beginning, hampered by a series of errors and missteps that compromised the crime scene, destroyed valuable evidence, and ultimately prevented investigators from solving the case. The unusual ransom note, the lack of signs of forced entry, and the cloud of suspicion that hung over the Ramsey family all contributed to the complexity of the case and fueled endless speculation and debate. The media frenzy surrounding the case further complicated the investigation, turning it to a public spectacle and creating a climate of fear and mistrust. The case became a cautionary tale about the power of the media to shape public perception and influence the course of a criminal investigation. Despite the numerous investigations, the grand jury proceedings, and the advancements in DNA technology, the JonBenét Ramsey case remains unsolved, a haunting reminder of the limitations of the criminal justice system and the enduring power of unsolved mysteries. In the next part, we will move on to Part 3, the investigation and legal proceedings, where we will delve deeper into the details of the official investigation, the various suspects, the legal battles, and the controversies that have surrounded this case for over 2 decades. We will examine the evidence, the theories, and the lingering questions that continue to fuel debate and speculation. What do you think are the key turning points in the investigation? Where do you think the investigation went wrong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we will explore them together in the next part. Part 3. The investigation and legal proceedings, a labyrinth of dead ends. The investigation into the death of JonBenét Ramsey stands as one of the most scrutinized and debated criminal inquiries in modern history. Despite decades of investigation, numerous theories, and relentless public interest, the case remains officially unsolved. This section will navigate the labyrinthine path of the investigation, highlighting the key turning points, controversies, and ultimately, the dead ends that have left this case a haunting enigma. Initial response and early eras, as detailed in Part 2. The initial response to the discovery of JonBenét's body was marred by critical errors. The Boulder Police Department, inexperienced in handling such a high-profile homicide, failed to properly secure the crime scene. The decision to allow John Ramsey to move the body, coupled with a movement of people within the house, irrevocably compromised the integrity of the evidence. These early missteps set a precedent for an investigation that would be plagued by controversy and ultimately a lack of resolution. The focus on the Ramseys from the outset, suspicion fell heavily on John and Patsy Ramsey. The unusual ransom note, the absence of clear signs of forced entry, and the family's perceived demeanor in the aftermath of the tragedy fueled speculation about their involvement. The Boulder police, under immense pressure to solve the case, primarily pursued this theory. They believed that the crime scene had been staged to resemble a kidnapping gone wrong. However, the investigation struggled to produce concrete evidence directly linking the Ramseys to the crime. While handwriting analysis of the ransom note yielded conflicting opinions, with some experts suggesting Patsy as the author. Others disputed this conclusion. The lack of definitive forensic evidence placing either parent at the scene of the crime further complicated the case against them. The grand jury and the non-indictment in 1998, District Attorney Alex Hunter convened a grand jury to review the evidence. This move was seen as an attempt to break the investigative deadlock and potentially indict the Ramseys. After 13 months of hearing testimony and reviewing evidence, the grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy on charges of child abuse resulting in death. However, in a highly controversial decision, Hunter chose not to prosecute the case, citing insufficient evidence to secure a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. This decision sparked outrage and fueled conspiracy theories, with some believing that the Ramseys' wealth and influence had shielded them from justice. Others argued that Hunter made the right call, given the lack of conclusive evidence. The intruder theory and DNA evidence, the Ramsey family consistently maintained their innocence, advocating for the intruder theory. They believed that an unknown assailant had entered their home, murdered JonBenét, and left the ransom note. This theory gained some traction in 2003 with the discovery of unidentified male DNA on JonBenét's clothing. This new DNA evidence led District Attorney Mary Lacy to officially exonerate the Ramseys in 2008. She stated that the DNA belonged to an unknown male and that there was no evidence to support the theory of the Ramseys' involvement. This announcement, however, did little to quell the debate. Critics argued that DNA could have been the result of contamination or incidental transfer, and that it did not definitively prove the existence of an intruder. Other suspects and unanswered questions. Over the years, several other individuals were investigated as potential suspects, including Bill McReynolds, Michael Helgoth, and Gary Oliva. However, none of these investigations yielded conclusive evidence linking any of these individuals to the crime. Each lead, while initially promising, ultimately led to a dead end. The investigation was further complicated by the intense media scrutiny surrounding the case. The constant leaks, speculation, and sensationalized reporting created a trial by media atmosphere, potentially influencing public perception and even hindering the investigation itself. The media circus undoubtedly added another layer of complexity to an already convoluted case, a legacy of unanswered questions. The JonBenét Ramsey case remains a haunting example of an investigation that, despite immense effort and resources, failed to deliver a conclusive resolution. The early errors in securing the crime scene, the focus on the Ramseys despite a lack of direct evidence, the controversial decision not to prosecute, and the ambiguous DNA findings have all contributed to a legacy of unanswered questions. Was the investigation mishandled from the start? Did the media frenzy impede the pursuit of justice? Was the intruder theory ever adequately explored? Did the authorities focus too narrowly on the Ramseys, to the exclusion of other possibilities? These questions continue to be debated, highlighting the enduring complexities of this tragic and perplexing case. Conclusion: the investigation into the death of JonBenét Ramsey is a stark reminder of the limitations of the criminal justice system, particularly when confronted with a complex crime scene, ambiguous evidence, and intense public pressure. While the case remains officially unsolved, it has spurred important discussions about forensic science, investigative procedures, and the ethical responsibilities of the media. The pursuit of justice for JonBenét continues, albeit in the form of ongoing debate and the enduring hope that one day the truth will finally be revealed. This case will probably remain a mystery for many years to come. Part 4G: Psychological Analysis: Unraveling the Mind of the Perpetrator. the death of JonBenét Ramsey presents not only a complex forensic puzzle, but also a deeply disturbing psychological enigma. Since no one has been convicted of the crime, any psychological analysis necessarily involves a degree of speculation. However, by examining the crime scene details, the ransom note, and the various theories surrounding the case, we can explore potential psychological profiles of the perpetrator, their possible motivations, and the underlying factors that may have contributed to this horrific act. This is important to try to understand what happened. Understanding the unknown. Profiling a killer. In the absence of a known perpetrator, criminal profilers have attempted to construct a psychological portrait of the individual responsible for JonBenét's death. This involves analyzing the available evidence to infer the personality traits, behavioral patterns, and potential motivations of the unknown offender. It is important to remember that profiling is not an exact science, but rather a tool that can help guide investigations and generate hypotheses. Several key questions arise when attempting to profile the perpetrator. In this case, was the crime sexually motivated? The presence of ligature marks, signs of possible sexual assault, and the victim's involvement in child beauty pageants have led some to believe that the crime had a sexual component. Was the perpetrator known to the family? The ransom note's familiarity with John Ramsey's bonus, the seemingly staged nature of the crime scene, and the lack of clear signs of forced entry have suggested to some that the perpetrator may have been someone known to the family, either intimately or peripherally. Was the crime premeditated or impulsive? The length and complexity of the ransom note suggest a degree of planning, while the chaotic nature of the crime scene and the use of a garret fashioned from readily available materials could indicate a degree of impulsivity or improvisation. What was the significance of the ransom note? Was it a genuine attempt to extort money, a red herring to mislead investigators, or a manifestation of the perpetrator's own psychological conflicts and fantasies? These questions are central to understanding the potential psychological makeup of the perpetrator. Possible psychological profiles based on the available evidence and the various surrounding the case. Several potential psychological profiles of the perpetrator have emerged. The organized offender. This type of offender typically plans their crimes meticulously, often bringing their own tools and taking steps to avoid detection. They are often intelligent, socially competent, and may even hold down a steady job. In the context of the JonBenét Ramsey case, the ransom note could be seen as evidence of an organized offender, particularly if it was written in advance and intended to mislead investigators. However, the chaotic nature of the crime scene and the use of improvised weapons seem to contradict this profile. The disorganized offender. This type of offender is often impulsive, acting on sudden urges or fantasies. Their crime scenes are typically chaotic and messy, reflecting their lack of planning and control. They may suffer from mental illness or have a history of social and interpersonal difficulties. Some aspects of the JonBenét Ramsey case, such as the use of a garrote made from a paintbrush handle and the apparent lack of effort to clean up the scene, could suggest a disorganized offender. However, the complexity of the ransom note seems inconsistent with this profile. The mixed offender. This category recognizes that many offenders do not fit neatly into either the organized or disorganized typology. They may exhibit characteristics of both, suggesting a more complex and nuanced psychological makeup. The JonBenét Ramsey case, with its blend of seemingly planned and impulsive elements, could potentially fit the profile of a mixed offender. This is perhaps the most likely scenario. The sexually motivated offender, given the evidence of possible sexual assault, it is plausible that the perpetrator was motivated, at least in part, by sexual desires. This could involve a range of paraphilias, including pedophilia, sexual sadism, or a combination thereof. The victim's age and involvement in beauty pageants may have been a factor in the perpetrator's selection process, although this remains speculative. The anger, retaliatory offender. This type of offender is motivated by anger and a desire for revenge, often directed at a specific individual or group. In the context of the JonBenét Ramsey case, some have speculated that the perpetrator may have harbored resentment towards the Ramsey family, perhaps due to their wealth, social status, or perceived slights. The ransom note's specific mention of John Ramsey's bonus could be interpreted as a manifestation of this anger. It is important to emphasize that these are just potential profiles, and the actual perpetrator may not fit neatly into any of these categories. The role of psychopathy. Psychopathy is a personality disorder characterized by a lack of empathy, remorse, and guilt, coupled with manipulative and antisocial behavior. While not all psychopaths are violent, they are overrepresented among individuals who commit serious crimes, particularly those involving premeditation and instrumental violence. Violence used to achieve a specific goal. Some experts have suggested that the perpetrator in the JonBenét Ramsey case may have exhibited psychopathic traits. The seemingly cold and calculating nature of the ransom note, the potential staging of the crime scene, and the apparent lack of remorse could be interpreted as indicators of psychopathy. However, it is crucial to avoid simplistic interpretations and to recognize that psychopathy is a complex construct that exists on a spectrum. The significance of the ransom noting. The ransom note found at the scene is one of the most enigmatic and debated pieces of evidence in the case. Its length, its peculiar wording, and its specific demands have led to numerous theories about its author and its purpose. From a psychological perspective, the note offers a potential window into the mind of the perpetrator, although its meaning remains elusive. Several interpretations of the ransom note have been proposed: a genuine kidnapping attempt. This interpretation assumes that the note was written by someone who genuinely intended to kidnap JonBenét and extort money from the Ramsey family. However, the fact that JonBenét was found dead in the home, coupled with the unusual nature of the note itself, has led many to question this theory. A red herring. This theory suggests that the note was written to mislead investigators and divert attention away from the true perpetrator, possibly someone known to the family. The note's length and its specific details and its odd phrasing could be seen as an attempt to create a false narrative and implicate an imaginary foreign faction, a manifestation of fantasy. Some experts have proposed that the note reflects the perpetrator's own psychological conflicts and fantasies. The note's language, its references to a foreign faction, and its detailed instructions could be interpreted as a projection of the perpetrator's inner world, rather than a reflection of reality. This is a very interesting theory. The authorship of the ransom note has also been a subject of intense debate. While some handwriting experts have suggested that Patsy Ramsey may have written the note, others have disputed this conclusion, citing inconsistencies and the possibility of deliberate disguise. The question of whether the note was written by someone inside or outside the family remains unresolved. The impact of trauma and abuse. In cases involving child homicide, it is essential to consider the potential role of trauma and abuse in the psychological development of the perpetrator. While there is no evidence to suggest that the perpetrator in the JonBenét Ramsey case was a victim of abuse, it is a factor that cannot be entirely ruled out. Childhood trauma, particularly experiences of physical or sexual abuse, can have a profound and lasting impact on an individual's psychological well-being. It can lead to difficulties in regulating emotions, forming healthy relationships, and developing a stable sense of self. In some cases, it can also contribute to the development of violent or antisocial tendencies. This is a sad reality. While it is impossible to know the specific experiences of the unknown perpetrator in this case, it is important to acknowledge that a history of trauma could potentially have played a role in shaping their psychological makeup and contributing to their actions. The role of mental illnessing. Mental illness is another factor that must be considered when attempting to understand the psychology of a violent offender. While the vast majority of individuals with mental illness are not violent, certain conditions, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe personality disorders, can, in rare cases, increase the risk of violent behavior. In the JonBenét Ramsey case, there is no direct evidence to suggest that the perpetrator suffered from a specific mental illness. However, the unusual nature of the crime, the perplexing ransom note, and the potential for sexual motivation could suggest the presence of underlying psychological disturbances. It is important to note that attributing the crime solely to mental illness would be an oversimplification. Mental illness, if present, would likely interact with other factors, such as personality traits, life experiences, and situational stressors, to contribute to the individual's behavior. The media's influence on public perception, the intense media coverage of the JonBenét Ramsey case undoubtedly shaped public perception of the crime and the individuals involved. The case became a national obsession, with every detail scrutinized and every theory debated in the public sphere. This media frenzy may have also influenced the psychological interpretations of the crime. The constant speculation about the Ramsey family's involvement, fueled by leaks, rumors, and innuendo, created a climate of suspicion and distrust. This may have led some to interpret the evidence through a lens of confirmation bias, seeking out information that supported their pre-existing beliefs about the case. The media's focus on JonBenét's involvement in child beauty pageants also contributed to the public's fascination with the case. Please. Some have suggested that this focus may have inadvertently sexualized JonBenét and contributed to the perception of the crime as sexually motivated, even in the absence of definitive evidence. The enduring mystery, a lack of closure, the unsolved nature of the JonBenét Ramsey case has left a void in our understanding of the crime and the individual who committed it. The lack of a definitive suspect or a clear motive has made it difficult to construct a comprehensive psychological profile of the perpetrator. This ambiguity has fueled endless speculation and a proliferation of theories, many of which are contradictory and based on limited evidence. The absence of closure in this case is a source of ongoing frustration for investigators, the Ramsey family, and the public. It serves as a stark reminder of the limitations of forensic science, a criminal profiling, and the justice system as a whole. The case stands as a testament to the enduring power of unsolved mysteries to captivate and haunt us. Conclusion: the psychological analysis of the JonBenét Ramsey case is an exercise in navigating uncertainty. In the absence of a known perpetrator, we are left to speculate about the motivations, personality traits, and potential psychological disturbances that may have driven this horrific crime. The various theories and profiles that have been proposed offer glimpses into the possible mindset of the killer, but they do not provide definitive answers. The case highlights the challenges of applying psychological principles to unsolved crimes, particularly when the evidence is ambiguous and open to multiple interpretations. It underscores the limitations of criminal profiling as a predictive tool and the importance of avoiding simplistic explanations for complex human behavior. The enduring mystery surrounding JonBenét's death serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of speculation, the pitfalls of media sensationalism, and the enduring human need for closure in the face of tragedy. While the truth about what happened to JonBenét may never be fully known, the psychological exploration of the case continues to offer valuable insights into the dark recesses of the human mind and the complexities of criminal motivation. In the fifth and final part, we will explore the lasting impact of the JonBenét Ramsey case on American culture, the criminal justice system, and the field of forensic science. We will also reflect on the broader lessons that can be learned from this tragic and perplexing case, and the ongoing quest for justice and understanding that continues to this day. The questions that remain are numerous. What do you think was the primary motivation behind this crime? Do you think the perpetrator was someone known to the family or a complete stranger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as we continue to grapple with this enduring enigma. Part 5. The Enduring Legacy. A case that still haunts us. The JonBenét Ramsey case, despite remaining unsolved, has left an indelible mark on the American psyche. It's a haunting reminder of the vulnerability of innocence and the limitations of the justice system. The tragic death of this 6-year-old girl, coupled with the ensuing media frenzy and the inconclusive investigation, has transformed the case into a cultural touchstone, a symbol of unsolved mysteries and the dark side of suburban life. The case's impact extends beyond the realm of true crime. It sparked debates about child beauty pageants, the ethics of media coverage in criminal investigations, and the challenges of balancing the public's right to know with the privacy of victims and their families. It also prompted changes in law enforcement procedures, particularly regarding crime scene management and the use of DNA evidence. Moreover, the case has become a staple in popular culture, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and television shows. It continues to fuel speculation and debate, demonstrating the enduring human fascination with unsolved mysteries and the quest for justice, even when it seems elusive. The memory of JonBenét Ramsey lives on, not only as a victim of a horrific crime, but also as a symbol of the complexities and imperfections of our world. Thank you for joining me on this in-depth exploration of the JonBenét Ramsey case. I hope it has provided you with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding this enduring mystery. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more explorations of true crime cases. Your support allows me to continue shedding light on these important stories. Please share your thoughts and theories in the comment section below. What do you believe happened to JonBenét? Let's continue the conversation and keep the search for answers alive. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.